The vastness of space was filled with countless stars, and between them hovered the flagship of the Galactic Council, a symbol of immense alien power. The room aboard was bustling with murmurs of the most elite species in the galaxy. They were discussing the issue that had brought them all together: the human threat. The human race, according to intelligence reports, had sent a single warship to this summit for negotiations. The idea itself was laughable to the council members. How quaint, one alien commander sneered, glancing at the small vessel on their holographic display. The Resolute, a warship built on old technology, barely 50 kilometers long, appeared on their screen like a dot against the vastness of their armadas. The room erupted in laughter. A ship of such age and size couldn't possibly challenge the might of the Council's forces. The humans, they thought, were naive, their military laughable at best. But despite the mockery, the Resolute sailed on, its crew aboard ready for what was to come. The human captain, Elena Hayes, was a battle-hardened war veteran who had seen more than her fair share of war and bloodshed. Her hands were steady as she stood on the bridge, watching the alien fleet laugh and make jokes about their ship. But Hayes, despite her calm exterior, was simmering with anger. This was the moment that the humans would prove their worth, not with words, but with action. With a sharp command, she engaged the cloaking device. The Resolute vanished from the alien sensors, just like that. The alien leaders paused, blinking in confusion. Where did it go? One of them asked, but by the time they could track it, the ship had already moved closer, hidden in plain sight. The laughter slowly died down as uncertainty began to creep into the alien minds. They may have thought they were untouchable, but the humans weren't here to fight fair. They were here to survive, and that made them unpredictable. The Resolute wasn't some advanced technological marvel like the alien warships, but humanity had something they didn't: the will to fight no matter the odds. And that was something no alien fleet had prepared for. The ship, still invisible, drifted closer to the Council's flagship, silently preparing for the strike. The first missile launched without warning, piercing through the dark void. The aliens had no time to react before the explosion rocked the hull of one of their cruisers. The alien fleet turned on each other in a panic, trying to locate the source of the attack, but the Resolute was already gone, invisible again. They could only see the damage and the confusion that followed. The Resolute's crew, though fewer in number than their alien counterparts, had managed to strike the first blow with nothing more than their wits and their willpower. For a moment, the aliens were in complete disarray. They fired wildly, unleashing powerful beams of energy, but they couldn't hit what they couldn't see. The Resolute darted in and out, hitting key systems with surgical precision. Shields were taken down, weapons silenced, and engines disabled. Yet every time the aliens tried to locate the human ship, it vanished again into the shadows, a ghost in the darkness. The confusion among the aliens grew, but they didn't realize that the humans weren't just skilled at hiding. They were skilled at surviving. Their attacks were precise, calculated, each strike weakening the aliens' position a little more. There were no grand displays of power, no long, drawn-out battles. Just moments of fear, of uncertainty, and then silence as the human ship disappeared back into the stars. As the battle wore on, the emotional weight of the situation began to settle on the human crew. On the bridge, Sergeant Bonner, a soldier who had been through countless wars, felt a pit in his stomach. He knew that they couldn't keep this up forever. The aliens were regrouping, calling in reinforcements, and if they didn't act soon, they would be overwhelmed. Bonner had already lost so many comrades in the wars before, and the thought of losing this fight, of letting down his people, haunted him. He wasn't sure how much longer he could keep going, but even in that moment of fear, his resolve remained unbroken. "We'll hold them off," he whispered to the rest of the crew, his voice steady despite the chaos. The Resolute continued to strike, the crew pushing forward despite their losses. With every successful attack, they gained more confidence, But the toll of the battle was visible in the eyes of the crew members, especially when Bonner fell. Taking a blast meant for the captain. His death weighed heavily on everyone aboard the Resolute, but it only fueled their determination. The crew knew that they couldn't afford to stop now. Every life lost meant that they had to win, not just for themselves, but for the ones who had already given everything. As the alien reinforcements arrived, the humans made their final play. The Resolute had one more weapon, one that was unlike anything the aliens had seen. It was an EMP missile, a last resort that could cripple the alien fleet, disabling their advanced technology in an instant. But the Resolute was running low on power. Time was against them. They had to get close, very close, to launch the EMP, and the alien ships were converging on their position, determined to finish the fight. Every second felt like an eternity. But then, with a quiet but resolute command, Captain Hayes directed the crew to launch the missile. It was a risk, a big one, but it was their only chance. The EMP missile shot out into the void, a streak of light in the darkness. The alien fleet, now in complete disarray, watched helplessly as their most powerful ships were rendered useless. Their weapons failed. Their shields collapsed. The Resolute had won. With the alien fleet in disarray, the Council had no choice but to surrender. The humans had proved their worth. The small, outdated warship, the one they had laughed at, had struck the final blow. The victory was bittersweet, though, as the cost had been great. Bonner was gone, and many others had given their lives. But in the end, it was their bravery and determination that had secured humanity's place in the galaxy. The Resolute returned home, the crew tired but proud. They had proven something no one had believed possible, that humanity, against all odds, could overcome the mightiest forces in the universe. And they had done it not with superior technology, but with the spirit to fight on when no one else would. The galaxy had learned that day, never underestimate the strength of the human heart. The Resolute was no match for the grandeur of the alien fleets surrounding it. Its once mighty hull was now age, the markings of a warship built for defense, not dominance. Yet this was the ship that the humans had sent to the heart of the Galactic Council, where the most powerful species in the universe had gathered. The aliens laughed. They mocked the human crew for even thinking they could stand against them, their ships towering over the small human vessel like giants over ants. But Captain Alina Hayes wasn't worried. She had seen this before, the doubt in the eyes of her enemies. It was their greatest weakness. They underestimated humanity, and that would be their downfall. Inside the cockpit of the Resolute, her fingers gripped the cold metal of the command console. Her crew stood silent, but their eyes were sharp with focus. They were ready. She waited for the right moment. Outside the Resolute, the Council's flagship loomed large, its sleek design a stark contrast to the battered human ship. Surrounding it were dozens of alien warships, all bristling with weapons and shields, designed for dominance. They were laughing now, assuming that the Resolute was too small, too insignificant, to pose any real threat. They could not see the human ingenuity that pulsed beneath the surface. With a quick glance at her tactical officer, Hayes gave the signal. "Activate cloaking," she ordered. The Resolute shimmered, disappearing from the alien sensors as if it had never been there. The laughter of the aliens cut off instantly, replaced by confusion. They knew something was wrong. The Resolute was nowhere to be seen, its sudden disappearance a stark reminder of how little they understood about humanity's capabilities. For a moment, all was silent. The Resolute hung in the cold emptiness of space, cloaked and hidden, invisible to every alien ship that surrounded it. Inside, the crew moved with practiced precision, coordinating their next move. They didn't need to be visible to strike a fatal blow. They had learned long ago that being unpredictable was the key to survival. Captain Hayes stood at the bridge, watching her display with an unwavering calm. "Stealth mode," she whispered to herself, adjusting the ship's trajectory. They had to get close, very close. The Resolute had only one chance to strike before the aliens figured out where they were hiding. The crew had trained for this moment, running drills over and over again, anticipating every move. They had perfected the art of stealth warfare. Without a sound, the Resolute edged closer to the enemy fleet, moving through the darkness with eerie precision. It wasn't just the cloaking technology that made it a deadly weapon. It was how the ship's systems were designed to maximize surprise. While alien ships relied on brute force and overwhelming numbers, the Resolute depended on cunning. They didn't need more ships. They just needed one good strike. The ship's sensors beeped quietly, confirming their position. The Council's flagship was in their sights. It was time. Hayes gave the order, her voice cutting through the tension. Prepare to fire. The crew braced themselves, though there was no visible sign of fear in their eyes. They were too focused on the task at hand. The Resolute's missile system was small compared to the alien fleets, but it was deadly. Every warhead had been carefully modified, each one designed to hit where it would do the most damage. The humans knew they couldn't afford to waste firepower. The first missile launched, quiet as a shadow. It soared through the empty expanse of space, invisible, just like the ship that had launched it. In an instant, the missile hit its target, the flagship's shield system. The explosion was sudden and violent, and for the first time, the aliens were no longer laughing. Their shields flickered, a sign that the Resolute had struck. The aliens scrambled to respond, their systems flooded with confusion. They didn't know where the attack had come from. The Resolute was gone, its cloaking device once again rendering it invisible. Panic spread across the alien fleet as they tried to locate the human ship, but there was nothing, just the silence of space and the damaged systems of their flagship. They were vulnerable. But Hayes knew this moment wouldn't last long. The Resolute couldn't stay hidden forever. They had done the damage they needed to, but now it was time to disappear again before the aliens could counterattack. With a flick of a switch, she activated the cloaking device once more. The Resolute vanished into the dark void, a ghost among the stars. For the alien fleet, the battle had just begun. They thought the Resolute was just a blip, a momentary glitch in the vastness of their power. But they were wrong. The human ship was a specter, striking when they least expected it, disappearing before they could strike back. Every time the Resolute reappeared, another alien ship suffered. Shields were taken out, engines fried, and weapon systems disabled. The Resolute was everywhere and nowhere all at once. The alien leaders were beginning to understand that they were no longer in control. They had underestimated the humans, and now they were paying for it. Every second that passed felt like a failure to the alien fleet. Their confidence, which had been so unshakable just moments ago, was beginning to crack. They could not locate the human ship. They could not stop it. The Resolute had turned the tables in a way the aliens never expected. Inside the Resolute, the crew worked tirelessly, their faces illuminated by the glow of their consoles. The tension was thick in the air, but there was also a sense of camaraderie. They were in this together. Every time the ship vanished, they knew they had made their mark, that their mission was succeeding. They were no longer the weak, unimportant species they had once been deemed. They were a force to be reckoned with, and they were proving it to the galaxy. Outside, the alien ships fumbled in their attempts to find the Resolute. The once impressive armada was now a chaos of desperation. They had thought themselves invincible. They had thought the Resolute was nothing more than a joke. But they were wrong. And in that moment, the humans were the ones laughing. The Resolute had shown them what it meant to underestimate humanity. And now the aliens were going to learn that lesson the hard way. The Resolute was barely a shadow against the might of the alien fleet. Its hull was battered, its design old. But that didn't matter to Captain Elena Hayes. She knew the ship's true power wasn't in its weapons or technology. It was in its crew. The human race had always been underestimated, but they had something no other species had the will to fight, to survive, no matter the odds. The battle had begun, and the Resolute had struck first, disappearing into the void after launching a devastating missile at the enemy flagship. But now, the aliens were regrouping. The confusion that followed their first blow had subsided, and the alien fleet was searching for them, determined to destroy the human ship that had dared to challenge them. Inside the Resolute, Captain Hayes stood tall, her eyes focused on the blinking lights of her console. The ship was still cloaked, hidden from the enemy's view, but the tension was rising. The crew knew they couldn't rely on surprise forever. They needed a new plan, something that would throw the aliens off even more. "We can't keep running forever," Sergeant Bonner, one of the veteran soldiers aboard, spoke up. His face was grim. "We need to make them believe we're gone, but we also need to keep hitting them where it hurts." Captain Hayes nodded. "Guerrilla tactics. We keep striking, and we keep them guessing. We don't fight them head-on. We make them fight ghosts." It was a dangerous plan, but there was no other choice. The Resolute wasn't powerful enough to take on the entire alien fleet in open combat, but with stealth, surprise, and speed, they could turn the tide. It wasn't about overwhelming the enemy with strength. It was about outsmarting them. "Stealth mode engaged," Hayes ordered. The Resolute once again vanished from the alien sensors, slipping silently into the darkness of space. The crew could feel the familiar hum of the cloaking device as it surrounded them. For now, they were invisible. Outside, the alien ships moved cautiously, aware that the Resolute was somewhere, but not sure where. Their sensors scanned the empty space, looking for the faintest hint of movement. But the Resolute was too quick, too elusive. The humans weren't trying to win by brute force. They were fighting with strategy. The first strike came silently. The Resolute darted out from its hiding place, unleashing a barrage of missiles aimed at an unprotected alien cruiser. The explosions were bright and violent, but within moments, the ship disappeared again into the void, leaving only confusion and chaos in its wake. "Target hit," one of the crew members reported. "We've disabled their engines." The aliens scrambled to react, firing blindly into space, hoping to catch the Resolute off guard. But the human ship had already vanished. It was impossible to track. The crew aboard the Resolute worked quickly, reloading and recalibrating, readying for their next strike. The alien fleet was in disarray. They couldn't figure out where the Resolute was or how to stop it. Every time they thought they had found it, it was gone, slipping into the darkness like a ghost. They had weapons that could vaporize entire cities, fleets that could obliterate planets, but they couldn't land a single hit on the Resolute. And that frustrated them. That angered them. Captain Hayes smiled grimly. "Keep them guessing. Hit them, then disappear, over and over again." The Resolute darted from one position to another, striking with precision, and then vanishing before the aliens could retaliate. Every time they hit, they made sure to disable vital systems, shields, weapons, engines. Nothing was left untouched. The aliens' fleet was slowly falling apart, piece by piece, as they struggled to find their unseen enemy. But it wasn't just the alien ships that were feeling the pressure. The Resolute's crew was working at full capacity. The ship wasn't built for constant movement at this scale. The cloaking device drained energy rapidly, and the systems had to be recalibrated with every strike. There was no time to rest, no time to regroup. Every time they fired, every time they disappeared, the crew risked the ship being exposed. They couldn't afford to make a mistake. As the battle wore on, the tension on the Resolute's bridge grew. The aliens were getting smarter. They were starting to send smaller ships in search of the Resolute, hoping to flush it out of hiding. But Hayes was ready. She knew they would try this. "Prepare to launch decoys," Hayes ordered. The crew immediately set to work, deploying small, unmanned ships designed to mimic the Resolute's signals. These decoys would send out fake readings, making the aliens believe they had located the human ship. And while the aliens chased after those false signals, the Resolute would strike again. The decoys were released, and the aliens took the bait. They launched a full-scale attack on one of the decoy signals, firing all their weapons in the direction of the false readings. But the Resolute was already gone, hidden once again, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. "We're making a dent," said Lieutenant Morales, the tactical officer. His voice was tense, but there was excitement in it too. The alien ship's shields were failing under the constant barrage. For the first time in hours, the Resolute's crew could see that the tide was beginning to shift in their favor. But the alien fleet wasn't going to go down so easily. The flagship's shields flickered, and then suddenly flared back to full strength. The alien ships that had been caught in the Resolute's attacks began to regroup, and new reinforcements were on the way. It wasn't enough. The humans had struck, but they hadn't crippled the fleet. The battle was far from over. "We've got to keep pushing," Captain Hayes said, her voice firm and unwavering. She knew they couldn't give the aliens time to recover. "All hands, prepare for evasive maneuvers. We need to stay ahead of them." The Resolute shot forward again, dodging alien blasts, the crew working together like a well-oiled machine. The ship's weapons fired with precision, targeting the alien ships one by one. But the alien forces were powerful. They were relentless, and they were starting to adapt. Suddenly, a warning light flashed across the bridge. "Captain, we've got a new threat," reported Sergeant Bonner, the head of security. "It's an incoming ship, a stealth ship. It's going to hit us from behind." The Resolute was too far into the battle to avoid this new attack. The alien reinforcements had arrived, and they had brought a stealth ship of their own, one that was equipped with a cloaking device similar to the Resolute's. "Not on my watch," Hayes muttered, more to herself than anyone else. She turned to her crew. "Activate countermeasures. Full energy to shields. We're not giving them an inch." The Resolute's energy shields flared to life, but the alien stealth ship was already in range. It fired, and the impact rocked the Resolute, throwing the crew off balance. "Status report," Hayes demanded, her voice sharp. "We've lost some power to the rear engines. The shields are holding, but we've taken some damage," Lieutenant Morales said, working quickly at his console. "We can't take another hit like that." The battle had become a high-stakes game of survival. The Resolute was fighting against overwhelming odds, and it was only a matter of time before the aliens figured out how to defeat the human ship. The crew was exhausted, but they refused to give up. They had come too far, sacrificed too much, to lose now. "We need to hit them fast," Captain Hayes said. "Full power to the front cannons. Let's break their momentum." With everything they had left, the Resolute launched a final devastating strike at the alien fleet. The weapons fired in unison, the blast shaking the very fabric of space. This time, the aliens were caught off guard. Their shields faltered. Their ships began to fall, one after another. And then, for the first time in the battle, the aliens began to retreat. The tide had turned. The Resolute had delivered a crushing blow, and the alien fleet was forced to pull back. The battle was far from over, but the humans had proven something undeniable. They could fight, and they could win. Against all odds, they had shown the galaxy that no matter how small, how outgunned, humanity would never give up. For Captain Hayes and her crew, the battle was not just about survival. It was about sending a message to the rest of the galaxy. They might have been seen as weak, but the Resolute had just proven that humanity was anything but. The battle was over. The silence that followed was deafening. The Resolute hung in the vast emptiness of space, its engines humming low as the crew surveyed the wreckage of the alien fleet. What had once been an overwhelming force was now a shattered remnant, scattered across the void like broken pieces of a puzzle. The alien ships, once powerful and terrifying, now drifted, disabled or destroyed, leaving behind only the aftermath of humanity's unexpected victory. "We've made our mark," Hayes said, speaking to her crew as the ship neared Earth. "But this is just the beginning. We've sent a message to the galaxy. But now we have to prepare for what's to come. We've shown them that we're willing to fight, Now, we need to show them that we can win. The crew stood together, united in their resolve. The battle against the aliens was far from over, but they had already proven that humans were not just survivors. They were warriors, and they would do whatever it took to protect their home, their families, and their future. The legacy of the Resolute would live on, not just in the annals of history, but in the hearts of those who had fought to protect humanity's place in the galaxy. The aliens had learned that humanity was not a race to be dismissed or underestimated, and that lesson would shape the future of the universe for years to come. The Resolute had fought with everything it had, and in doing so, it had left an indelible mark on the galaxy. The tides of war had shifted, but for humanity, this was only the beginning of a long, hard fight for survival, and they were ready.